Hello everyone and welcome to Terraria beaten with old equipment only. So this is the pre-hard mode stage where I will only be using equipment from version 1.0, release version 1.0, so no things such as Knight's Edge or Demon's Scythe in this part. First thing I do is start to explore the surface in attempts to find a wooden boomerang, as that is the first legal weapon. Well, other than like my iron short sword, which is terrible because it's a short sword. However, I end up being unsuccessful in my searches and end up dying to this zombie. With that plan failing, I decide to start digging starting to dig a elevator. And along the way I found the first of many life crystals, and then another one, after a couple of life crystals I head back up and try and head down to the corruption to find demonite to make the light's bane. I find some demonite here, but it isn't nearly enough to make the weapon. And on the second night it ends up being a blood moon, so I have to attempt to deal with the enemies, which does not go well. Because it is master mode. However, in the meantime I decide to collect fallen stars to make mana crystals to try and max out my mana. And eventually, after a bit, I do. Which will be very helpful later on. Then I head back down into the corruption and this time get the musket. And also break another orb for a band of star power. After getting my weapon, I start making some NPC housing at spawn. Make some housing over in the desert, so the arms dealer can be at maximum happiness, reducing the cost of the mini shark. And I head back down and manage to find some Hermes boots and also this gem cave, but the gems are kind of useless because you couldn't really do anything with them in 1.0. But I do manage to make the light's bane, and I'm just trying to collect some gems and ore that I can sell to the arms dealer so I can buy the mini shark. And then I buy many bullets for the mini shark because it consumes a lot of ammo. And this will be my main weapon of choice for quite a long time. For most of the episode. When I get back there's a goblin army, so I try and fend them off normally, but then I eventually use some lava to make a trap for the goblins to fall into, and eventually they are defeated. And after the goblin army, I make the demon bow because I had the materials. And after crafting that, I head into the jungle and manage to get the sharpening station, along with some life crystals. I managed to find the goblin tinkerer, and I can actually use the rocket boots because those were added in 1.0, but I can't combine the Hermes boots and rocket boots until hard mode, because only then I can use items from 1.1 and beyond. After some jungle exploration, I managed to make the ivy whip and the blade of grass, and the blade of grass will be my melee secondary for most of pre-hard mode. Now after that, I start making a storage room so I can put items in chests and have them all organised so I can actually find them. Then I head up into the skies, into the floating islands to look for the shiny red balloon and the lucky horseshoe. And then this is when I take another break to make more NPC housing. And here I'm making like a boat in the sky lake. After doing that, I start building a 2-layered arena at my base, and then craft the slime crown, several slime crowns so I can duplicate them and have infinite king slime spawns, and then summon the king slime. Right off the bat, I take 2 devastating hits, reducing my health to half. But I quickly recover and start shooting at the king slime. And I keep running and gunning with my mini shark. And as king slime's health decreases, his size also decreases but his speed increases. Though it's not really exactly too difficult to deal with because it is just king slime. And then after a long fight, the king slime is down. And then I decide to reforge my mini shark and get the agile modifier for extra speed. Then at night I summon the Eye of Cthulhu. And eventually, as I lower down the Eye of Cthulhu's health, it transforms into his second form, making fast dashes at me. Luckily I have Hermes boots so I can mostly dodge this. I just keep running and shooting at him with my mini shark. And after not long, the Eye of Cthulhu is taken down. And after fighting the Eye, I get access to planter boxes, so I decide to make a quick herb farm. And then I start building a station for all my crafting stations. And then finally add a respawn point which for some reason looks like a dolphin. I don't know, I'm just randomly placing blocks of the shape. And building more NPC houses, because there's a lot of NPCs at this point in pre-hard mode. And soon after I start building the arena to take on the Eater of Worlds. I try something more aesthetic here, although that was a terrible idea because, as you'll see, the extra blocks keep blocking my Jester's arrows from hitting the Eater of Worlds. I head down into the chasm and make up a few worm foods, and then summon the Eater of Worlds. Now, although the arena looks cool, the blocks keep preventing me from blocking my arrows, which is not ideal. Which drags on this fight for a very long time, even longer than normal. And on this first attempt I ended up dying to the vile spit, but then I summon him up again, and this attempt goes a lot better than the previous. I'm making sure to keep an eye on the vile spit and dodge it when it comes out. And near the end I start trying to use my blade of grass, which I probably should have been doing the whole time, though it is quite hard to get hits in without getting hit myself. And then eventually I land the last sword swing. Wait, not yet. Now land the last sword swing, taking out the Eater of Worlds. And then immediately I head over to where the meteorite landed and partake in an epic meteorite mowing session in order to get space gun and meteorite armor. The space gun ends up not being that strong particularly. And I craft up lots of meteorite bars and then make the full meteor set. And the space gun. And after that I clear out an area and start building the trophy room to house all the relics from the bosses. Then I start using some dynamite to blow out a elevator so I can have quick access to the underworld for Hellstone. And speaking of which, I go on a Hellstone mowing session so I can get tools and weapons and all that. Mainly just the molten pickaxe, the molten hamaxe and the volcano. And after that I start building some more housing in the jungle, so I can get a jungle pylon for quick jungle access, which will be very important later on. And then I craft up many meteorite bullets, and then some shadow armor, because I'm going to use the mini shark for Skeletron as well. So after building up a quick arena, I talked to the old man and summoned Skeletron. And right away he starts trying to hit me with his hands, but with my rocket boots and Cloud in the Bottle and Hermes boots and shadow armor movement boost, I am able to dodge him rather easily. Then, angered by the destruction of his limbs, he starts shooting skulls at me. And once the other hand is down, he starts shooting even more skulls in a desperate attempt to rid me from the dungeon entrance. But I keep circling and dodging and firing at him with my mini shark. And then eventually, Skeletron is taken down. And in the dungeon I managed to find the Water Bolt, the Muramasa, the Aqua Scepter, which will be my Wall of Flesh weapon, and buy some very important vanity items and make the Void Bag, which helps my inventory management not be a war crime. And then I loot some shadow chests in the underworld to get the Flame Lash and the Flower of Fire. And I start clearing out an area in the jungle for the Queen Bee fight. I can't actually use any of the loot from this, I'm just doing it for fun, which is why I did Skeletron first. And with the arena complete, I summon up the Queen Bee and get straight to work. The best way to use the Flower of Fire is to shoot it upwards and let Queen Bee run into the projectiles, which deals a lot of damage. However, the Flower of Fire isn't particularly great at dealing with the bees, so I eventually go down. However, I summon the Queen Bee again, and this time it goes a whole lot better. She starts dashing and shooting stingers and all this other stuff. And then during her bee summoning attack, I switch over to the Aqua Scepter for the high damage and piercing. And then I switch back to the Flower of Fire for high single target damage. And then as the Queen's health decreases, she starts increasing the intensity of her attacks, but doesn't really stop me from dodging. And then eventually Queen Bee goes down. Very important potion right here. Oh, okay. Where was I? Oh yeah. I'm now making a pylon in the snow biome, so I can quickly get over here. Because I need... And also I just need more NPC housing. There's just way too many at the moment. And then I head down into the ice caves to farm Flink's fur from the Flinksers to make Deerclop's summoning item. Yet again, just for fun, because I can't actually use any of the stuff from Deerclops. I just want to see how this really old gear works out. And I'll make the deer thing and summon up Deerclops. Yeah, I used the strategy of running under the Deerclops' legs and turning around my grappling hook. Although things at the start are not going well. Now I'm losing a lot of my health and I eventually die, but the Deerclops doesn't despawn. So I head back and then die basically immediately. I have a third time's the charm apparently, and well, after that, and after running into that Shadow Hand, I managed to find a rhythm and managed to dodge the boss and start shooting with the Flower of Fire for a lot of damage. And how I'm regenerating my mana in this fight and also the Queen Bee fight was that when I'm down to about half mana, I stop attacking and then just let it regenerate. It technically works, but it's not nearly as good as using a mana regeneration potion. But anyways, after a long fight, the Deerclops is down. And randomly, while trying to find the shimmer, I found the dirtiest block, which is like one of the rarest items in the game. But I couldn't find the shimmer, so I just world hopped to a world where I knew where the shimmer was. And then decided to get some permanent upgrades like Ambrosia, Vital Crystal and Arcane Crystal. And I head down to the underworld again and start the construction of a long bridge, well, a long series of tiny dodgy bridges to fight the Wall of Flesh. And eventually I finish that, so I throw the guide voodoo doll into the lava and get to work. But I do end up dying due to my lack of survivability and mana regeneration. However, I get some potions and throw the guide Labubu doll. Oh, no, I mean guide voodoo doll. Goodness sake. Guide Labubu doll. What? Anyways, I start using the Aqua Scepter and running away, doing the run away and attempt to dodge the lasers with the dodgy arena. Like, the strategy's normal, like the strategy's the same basically. And as the wall's health is decreasing, the intensity of his attacks are also increasing. At the final stretch of the battle, he gets increasingly desperate, and I get also increasingly desperate, and I get down to 4 HP, but finally the wall is down. However, that's it for part 1. Like and subscribe to see part 2, where I take on everything up until Plantera.